Throne and Liberty, the best looking MMO coming this year. Still kind of has a realistic vibe to it, but we'll see once they actually dive into it. This is 21 minutes.
One of the most exciting and highly anticipated upcoming MMOs for me, scheduled to release this year, is a game by the name of Throne and Liberty. This is a
I like the logo.
action combat MMO that touts a few noteworthy and interesting features, including a massive open world with...
I don't hate the way that this looks, oddly enough. Hunterson 780, thanks for the follow, my friend. Hope you're doing good, having a great day, drinking a little bit of water. It's weird because like Lost Ark, I don't know.
Weather that directly affects the enemies, your abilities, and even alters the terrain.
It's like a Final Fantasy graphic system, right? I feel like maybe I'm blind, but like Ashes of Creation has a little, and Black Desert has a little too much realism. I think this is like a good balance right here.
Huge open field boss battles that require potentially up to hundreds of players to take on. Castle sieges where you can control giant stone golems and smash walls. Lots of different traversal options from mantling and
ooh, I like that a lot.
Grapple hooks and transforming into animals. A major focus on challenging cooperative PvE content.
Let me tell you something, bro. They're going to require people to have
to grapple hooks and transforming into animals.
You're going to require people to have beefy computers. Can you imagine playing on like a laptop, like a little $500 laptop or something, or playing on like a budget PC? And you're like, maybe you're this little guy right here. Like, hey, I'm going to summon some friends to play, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, we have people coming in, and then this happens. Your shit is going to blue screen.
Focus on challenging cooperative
85 people just jumped
content,
in.
Open world PvP with a PK system, and lots of other MMO elements that you would expect. Capital cities to hang out with others, a big old loot grind to engage with, and
I like that guy.
Other social activities. And
I
gotta say, from that first announcement trailer released last March, along with a handful of developer interviews since,
why haven't I seen anything on this?
Is looking absolutely fantastic.
No
now,
shit.
Forgiven for thinking this was a new announcement, first officially revealed earlier
World
this year.
premiere.
The truth is, development began over a decade ago, starting out as a top-down ARPG with some rather interesting gameplay mechanics.
What a wild fucking switch. You went from a top-down Diablo Lost Ark style game into this? Excusez-moi?
Clearly see from recent footage, it is no longer anything like that.
No shit, bro. Look at all these dudes carrying all my homies. I'm going to play this on a Steam.
Pretty interesting story all around. So we are going to dive into the long and strange history of Throne and Liberty's development, how it's changed, but then also get into some of the specifics of what the current iteration is and why I am so excited and looking forward to checking out this game. First, I do want to touch on the history because Throne and Liberty has been in development for a very long time.
You said a decade, yeah.
It started out as a successor to Lineage, which if you don't know, Lineage was a medieval fantasy MMO developed by NCSoft that released back in 1998. Its sequel, Lineage 2, which was actually a prequel, launched in 2003. And then this new game that we're talking about today, Throne and Liberty, started out as what was basically going to be Lineage 3. First revealed back in 2011 as Lineage Eternal: Twilight Resistance, the game, according to...
When was it? When did they announce it?
The game 11 as Lineage Eternal.
2011?
Basically going to be Lineage 3. First revealed back in 2011 as Lineage Eternal: Twilight Resistance, the game, according to...
I fucking hate you all. I'm literally reading Aaron's messages and I haven't heard what he said. I'd come dressed in a green suit and hold a controller on the screen as Jerry's arms. Easy bet.
3. First revealed back in 2011.
2011.
Eternal: Twilight Resistance. The game, according to an Engadget article posted at the time, would take place in the same fantasy setting as the previous two Lineage games, but this one sports more of a Diablo-esque camera view and much more use of object-oriented gameplay.
Hopping on board, they were trying to take that success. Isn't that when Diablo 3 came out, 2011? Am I wrong on that? Were they not probably pulling from that like Diablo 3? Like, yeah.
In other words, this was a top-down action game similar in appearance to Diablo 3, although with a pacing that was a bit on the slower side, with slower movement and slower attacks, and they had some rather unique ideas for gameplay mechanics.
Sounds
Lineage
horrible.
Eternal featured a drag and hold bit of combat where you would literally click and drag your mouse either in an arc or in a direction to strike enemies with certain abilities. They also emphasized the player's ability to make use of objects in the environment.
That's not bad, but you'd have have to be able to move with a
jars, or use
WASD.
grapple hook to pull enemies towards you. That same grapple hook could also be used to navigate the environment.
So that's why they're bringing that grapple hook in and that brief bit of stuff we had. So that's why we have a grapple hook. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Gaps. This might not
What'd you get in that treasure
like
chest?
Today,
Look at that fucking guy.
To be
Yuck
a
'em.
fairly interesting twist on
Whoa.
traditional ARPG gameplay, especially back at the time. In the years following that first reveal, the game had a series of playtests where they collected feedback and impressions, from which they continued to work on, iterate, and improve the title. Over
Shout
time,
out T-Pain.
they made so many changes that in 2017 they decided to rename the game from Lineage Eternal, aka Lineage 3, to Project the Lineage, or as it is often called, Project TL for short. It would still be a top-down action game, but now looked way more modern with updated graphics, effects, and animations.
So they were sticking with the shit they want to go with.
More fast-paced. They removed the click and drag mechanics, opting.
The click and drag mechanic isn't bad, but most of those top-down games doesn't give you an option to do the WASD. Like, you actually have to click with your mouse. So that's more clicking and more move. No. What am I doing with my left hand? You never know.
For a more traditional hack and slash
combat, Legolas?
Where you would just point your mouse in a direction and activate an ability. They also really ramped up the cinematic feel of the game with a lot more wide camera pans and sweeping vistas to break up the action, highlight certain enemies or environmental pieces. The overall appearance of the game actually looked quite similar to Lost Ark, a top-down action MMO that Amazon recently published the Western version of. In fact, you could have told me that some of this footage was of Lost Ark, and I would totally believe you. It just looks that similar.
Looks very similar to Lost Ark.
Direct competitors for quite some time. So the game continued its development along this new direction for a few more years, getting
did like that though. That was cause sick looking
cinematic trailer. But then everything changed in 2019 and things went completely dark.
It's just 3 years ago.
Held off on showing or talking about anything pertaining to the game. There was just no new updates. That was until a few months ago.
How does that happen though? Like in that meeting, okay, say you're just sitting there chilling, and you're like, hey man, I think this game's looking pretty good. We have Lost Ark as a competitor. We're being compared to Diablo. They even said Diablo has camera angle. And it's like, all right, this is the direction we want to take this in. And with somebody just like, let's do an MMO. Like, let's just say, fuck it. Scrap what we have and just let's do an MMO. Let's turn this camera angle around and let's just do it, change it all completely.
When in March,
that's intense.
We were introduced to Throne and Liberty, the latest iteration of what was once Lineage Eternal. As you can see with the new naming, they've completely removed any Lineage branding and replaced it with Liberty. And of course, beyond changing
Throne and Lineage would be a nice name
and ditching the Lineage IP, it's also no longer a top-down Diablo-esque hack and slash game. Instead, we've got a third-person action game with realistic visuals and combat that is reminiscent of something like Black Desert Online. This quite dramatic
Black Desert is a mess.
Shift, according to NCSoft, actually happened around spring of 3 years ago, so around the same time where things went quiet. When they came to the realization that the original vision for the game was just no longer viable, touching on this in an interview, they said, in the process of development, a lot of the original systems and content had to be adapted or removed to follow the current game trends. As a result, the gameplay also gradually became different from the original. We wrote a completely new story, and after this work, questions arose within the development team as well, like, should this be called Lineage? And
that makes more sense because you're like, hey, is this even a part of what we were initially doing?
Thus, we are left with Throne and Liberty, a dramatically different game from its origins.
I think they're doing the right thing.
The game also looks and sounds fantastic from everything we've learned. I mean, there are just some stellar ideas for gameplay and systems and mechanics in this game. And after learning more about it and doing research, I am just so incredibly pumped. A lot more than
I can't wait to do some research on this.
Gameplay trailer. Like, the gameplay trailer's flashy, but it kind of just looks like BDO. Like, that's the obvious reference. But there's a lot going on with this game that's really, really interesting. So what do we know about Throne and Liberty? Most of the available details for this game come from the initial reveal trailer, but also a developer
I'm gonna have to watch the reveal trailer. I've never watched any of this.
They describe Throne and Liberty as a next-generation MMO for PC and console. You will notice a lack of mobile in that description because, yes, this is one of the few new Eastern-developed MMOs that's not also coming to phone. So
we don't need it on the phone. PC and console. I was gonna say this looks like you can play it with a controller. It doesn't look too complex like a World of Warcraft or anything, but okay.
There.
I mean, you could play Final Fantasy 14 on a controller as well, which I think is sick. So when the WoW controller thing with Microsoft owning Blizzard, it's just sooner or later that's gonna happen.
Said that when work began on Throne and Liberty those 3 or so years ago, they set out with the goal of rethinking.
That guy looks sick as fuck. Show that fight.
A next-gen MMO should have. They wanted to build an engaging world that players can immerse themselves in, while offering many different kinds of experiences and content that would cater to a wide range of players.
Add in 3 seconds.
What sort of content will that include? Well, for
great ad placement, by the way.
No matter
if you did that yourself,
what goals you have,
you won. Oh wow, we got a black desert.
For starters, we know that Throne and Liberty will be primarily focused on offering challenging cooperative PvE. The developer said that while many existing NCSoft games
Was that a press F to pay respects moment?
PvE. The developer said that while many
Says F. We're gonna pay respects to the grave. I think we should.
existing NCSoft games focus on player competition, and that can be fun. Quote, the reality, however, is that many more players are more interested in overcoming well-designed challenges than competing. So, in making Throne and Liberty, we tried to put in a lot of this challenging content.
I do appreciate that.
This can be seen most clearly in the game's boss fights, which can only be overcome by groups of players who fully understand the mechanics of their characters, the mechanics of the boss.
I guess those bosses will never be defeated. RIP.
And are able to execute on all of this properly. To be clear, although they've said that PvE will be a main focus,
PvP.
you can be sure that PvP is in the game as well.
Hell
in fact,
yeah!
We even know that there will be a PK system. In another interview, they mentioned having a PK system where killing other players hits you with this accumulating debuff called Evil Deeds. However, if you PK during the nighttime, you will not receive this debuff, presumably because no one can see what it is that you're doing and to who you're doing it. So at the very least, this seems to confirm that open world PvP in some capacity will be a thing. In that,
if you kill people during the day, you get a fucking debuff, but at night, slaughter away. Imagine you're playing the game, it's nighttime. You're like, I think I'm gonna go to my shack, bro. Maybe try on some new clothes, you know? Maybe kick my feet up, watch a little bit of television, catch a new episode of some Care Bears, and then bam, a fucking rogue comes in and stabs you.
same interview, they also touch on the fact that the game will support both small-scale one-on-one fights where you have to skillfully and carefully engage with enemies between attacks, counters, and defensive skills, but will also have a lot of large-scale group battles where it is best for people to stick and work together. And that whole lack of getting a PK debuff in the evening at nighttime when the sun's down, that also leads us into this game's next major feature. In Throne and Liberty, weather and time of day have huge gameplay implications.
Clearly.
You could spend hours and hours farming in the same area, but things would continuously evolve based on a lot of
That's
parameters.
sick as
Say
fuck,
you're
bro.
out
That's
finding
so much game
monsters and
time.
then the wind starts picking up. This will have an actual effect on things like projectiles, reducing the range of bow attacks, for example. If the weather's good and the sun is out, your lightning spells may only hit a single target. However, if it starts raining, that same lightning skill all of a sudden will start doing area of effect damage.
That's
hitting
fucking
multiple targets.
wicked.
Weather and time of day will have an effect on which NPCs populate an area. There will be some creatures that only come out at night or only during big storms. And weather will impact the environment. They said, for example, that normally in siege warfare, this game's large-scale PvP, there will be several ways to infiltrate a castle, including the castle's underground sewer system. However, during
I can go through the doo-doo to go
these
get the castle?
areas can fill with water and become inaccessible, forcing you to find an alternate route. Similarly,
That's pretty fire.
changes in weather can open up or restrict access to dungeons.
That's
or
very
various
fire.
Parts of a zone. World bosses are also influenced by the weather. Some bosses may get stronger when it rains or weaker when the sun's out, and the weather changes what loot the boss drops.
Well, the
there might
weather
be a
outside
stat that
is
only
weather.
drops from
These
a boss
motherfuckers
during
are
lightning
weather
storm,
boosted.
which means you will want to wait to fight that boss until the proper weather conditions arise.
Bruh, this
What's
is
more,
nutty.
though, is that players will have the ability to directly affect this weather, and the time of day. If certain conditions are met, you will be able to trigger a solar eclipse, blocking out the sun, or call in a storm. This will be a high-level ability, likely with a very long cooldown, and not something that everyone has access to all of the time, but as you can imagine from the implications that the weather and time of day have, this is a very powerful tool. And I have to remind you that this is an MMO, so the idea of changing the weather or the time of day for everyone else around you in an MMO, it's a pretty cool concept. To quote,
that's pretty fucking sick, dude. That adds so many layers to the game. That makes events feel more important. Oh, fuck. That's such a cool concept. If this game doesn't execute it well, there's definitely games down the line that could execute that perfectly.
The developer on this particular aspect of the game, they said the area, the environment, and the player, these three factors influence each other, and we try very hard to keep the experience varied even in the same areas. All around, this is a very interesting and cool
that could add
system.
so much time to grinding.
Talk a bit about the world and the traversal system.
Yeah.
Throne and Liberty is said to have a large, seamless open world to explore, as many MMOs do. However, they've mentioned that unlike a lot of modern-day games in the genre, they hope to keep players immersed in the environment by less reliance on systems that reduce the sense of scale, specifically fast travel. Instead, they wanted to focus on traversal systems that you engage with directly. Our characters will have the ability to traverse the environment with things like a mantle or climbing of most objects that you see around you. Instead of having to walk around every low wall or every barrel that you see, you can hop over or climb
just jump over it. That's a very nice touch.
For one specific pathway to access a location, you will have many means of exploring the environment instead of single paths.
Hey, bro, my fucking nipples are hard. Where's my back scratcher?
Pull ourselves up to higher terrain or specific locations. And rather than a traditional mount system, the game has us transforming into animals. They've showcased a few examples.
We're all druids.
Cats for land travel, dolphins for water, and birds for flight.
We're all druids.
Focus on transportation, the developer has said, is something they want to use to keep players connected to the world and the play space.
That's
so it seems that
sick.
No matter what class you play in Throne of Liberty, you're also
a druid.
playing as a druid.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be put off by that.
No.
I kind of like.
I think that's badass. Why would you be put off by that?
Really emphasize the sense of freedom of exploration here, saying that between your character's abilities to mantle, climb, and grapple, as well as the animal transformations, combining all of these things open up a lot of problem solving to access inaccessible areas. They referenced how, for example, there might be no easy way to directly get into a fortress that has massive walls around it, but if you climb to a high enough height in the surrounding area and then swap into your bird form, which will function like a glide, that you could then soar over the wall and into the fortress. 'Cause I'm soaring. In fact, the ability to affect the weather that players have
and in the wind
here as well,
right?
Because some players will be able to even change the direction of the wind, and this in turn can be used
fucking
to glide
insane
further and access more difficult to reach
teamwork
areas.
Makes the dream work, baby.
Of Throne of Liberty is going to be its storytelling, they said, with lots of interaction.
I definitely want to play this story
with NPCs, with cutscenes, but also just telling a story in the background as you play.
I think something really cool that they could do is if they took it from the MMO perspective of it, like how we normally play these games, and then they introduced a mission or two, or maybe like a whole section where it was a top-down view like Diablo, like the original game they were making. That'd be pretty sick.
Said, in order for the story and worldview to be explained naturally in the game, various gameplay tools and directional techniques found primarily in adventure games were used. So we can expect this to be stuff like NPC chatter in the background as you walk through town.
I do like NPC chatter.
Narrative, or
my back scratcher.
Across lore events and relevant locations out in the world.
That motherfucker was broad.
All of which help build up the narrative of the world that you're playing in. Now, outside of the information in developer interviews, we could also get some details out of the gameplay trailer as well. For example, we see plenty of examples of the game's action combat, and at a glance, yes, it does look quite similar to what we see as an action combat system in Black Desert Online.
I think it looks better than Black Desert.
To be certain just from the trailer, in one of the interviews, they have talked about having a direct targeting system. I am not expecting this to be full-on tab targeting per se, a la World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV.
Tab targeting would be nice.
Likely to be a soft lock system where aiming at a target, even if it's slightly off the mark, will cause your skills to strike. But from the trailer alone, we see plenty of examples of AoE and cleave abilities that do appear to be target.
That is just nutty right there.
a soft lock.
All them
system.
people spawning
Point your
in.
spells in the relative vicinity of an enemy, but you don't need to necessarily like aim for headshots, for example. We also see what look to be a few story cutscenes. We see a bunch of environmental interaction, like the opening of chest and activating these shrines. We notice a very minimal UI, which I personally love, and I hope this sticks in the
Same.
version.
Same.
UIs are some of my least favorite things in many MMOs. I like the streamlined, simplified UI. And then there's
simplify the UI as much as possible.
With a ton of players taking on these oversized world bosses.
I like that graphic.
This is what's gotten most people excited about the game. This stuff just looks so cool. And then
imagine you're just playing. I don't think it should be announced either. I think it should be 100% random. Like, okay, you're in the middle of playing a game, going about your business, maybe grinding, trying to get some materials, maybe trying to get a chest piece or something. And then all of a sudden, you hear like some horns or like some growling or something. And this big fucking beast comes out of the ground. And now you and 74 other idiots start fighting this fucking thing. And it drops rare exclusive stuff that is a little bit of RNG with also timed events and stuff you can do as well. They kind of had it a little bit in a while, but you could like time it and see where the stuff was in one of the newer areas. You can even get an app that would help you track it. So like, I just want it to be random.
And they wrap up the trailer with some PvP Castle Siege clips, which I also think look pretty slick. These systems and features and all of this stuff that we've covered, that
my back itches so much.
It all looks really, really cool. I am excited, and honestly, and I'm very looking forward to playing the game. Although I don't want to.
I think it looks sick as fuck, dude. I hate these. These advertisements drive me crazy.
Fact that the game has been stuck in what is sometimes referred to as development hell. I mean, it's been in production for over a decade,
years.
Far beyond the typical amount of time a game sees in development. I do imagine that they have reused or repurposed a lot of the work from the earlier versions. I don't think that it just all went into the trash can and they started from scratch in 2019. I mean, hey, just the fact that this game has a grapple hook, which we saw grapple hooks in that first 2011 reveal trailer, that's something, right? And while it can be concerning, I also don't think that a long development cycle or even changing
ads are horrible
is necessarily a death sentence. We've had some high-profile examples in the past with things like the original Halo, for example. That game started out as a real-time strategy game before becoming a third-person shooter before finally setting on being a first-person shooter. Now, I am not saying Throne and Liberty is going to be like the equivalent of a Halo. That was just a defining for console FPS. That
right.
Game really,
that was just a good analogy. Right, I'm with you. You don't have to explain it.
Throne and Liberty is going to be that. My only point is that I don't think that making dramatic changes during development has to be a death.
I mean, if it is a Halo, fucking kudos.
But I do think that spending over
as long as you're not like a Halo 5 or even in Halo Infinite. Pain.
10 years in development could play a role into the game's monetization. They have yet to lay out specifics on this, whether or not the game will have.
Speaking of monetization and spending money, how should you spend your hard-earned cash? Well, do I have a tip for you? You can head on over to gfuel.com right now and use code JaredBear to save 0% on any purchase store-wide. That's right. Going over to gfuel.com right now, grab any flavor you want, the dragon fruit, the wampa fruit, any fruit you want, phase berry, the splish splash, shiny splash, I was taking a bath, blueberry lemonade, Jared Bear's personal favorite, the Black Goose flavor. No matter what it is, you can go to gfuel.com right now, put in your cart, and put in code JaredBear. That's right, JeRBEAR, to save 0% on any purchase at gfuel.com. Got some long nights ahead for some future MMOs like Throne and Liberty? Go ahead and make sure to use that code. Save that money, get a scoop, get focused, get hydrated, and get ready to dominate the competition.
Have a base box price, have a subscription fee, will it be free to play? We are not totally sure. We can, however, bet that either way, this game will have microtransactions. Being a Korean MMO from NCSoft, they have a well-established track record for us to reference, and just about every one of their games dip into various buckets of pay for convenience, pay for materials, pay for cosmetics with stats, so on and
That makes me sad.
I mean, it would be surprising if Throne and Liberty didn't shouldn't have some combination of these things. So just keep your expectations in check. This will not be a set box price with no cash shop.
Oh, well, that's no games nowadays. Got to have a
that's just not
battle pass.
Now, NCSoft's CFO did touch on the monetization a few months ago, saying that he understands users' concerns and promises to do his best to avoid the appearance of pay-to-win elements. That tells you about all we need to know. Now, with that said, and considering the fact that the game has 10 years of development cost to recoup, I expect Throne and Liberty will be either free to play or have a low base price of like $20 to $40. And then there will be a cash shop. It will have microtransactions, probably for convenience,
store mounts,
materials, and almost certainly for cosmetics for sale as well.
And I do not mind some level of cosmetic microtransactions. Limited things, certain things you can spend some money on to unlock, maybe for some events or stuff. I still think the coolest shit should be earned in the game.
And maybe some subscription or a season pass on top of that. That is my expectation until we hear otherwise. Also of note and worth mentioning here is that they have a second MMO in development called Project E. This game shares the same world and the same continent as Throne and Liberty, but is in a more Korean style and theming, as the E seemingly stands for Eastern. They have called these sister games. I am not sure exactly how all of this will play out.
How is that gonna? Is one like a DLC or something?
This was an interesting note. Okay, so
you spend 10 years in development, you decide, you know what, we're going to make 2 MMOs at the same time.
What is next? Well, as of right now, the game is still scheduled to release in Q4 2022, which will put it sometime in the next 4 to 5 months. Although it may seem unlikely, given we still don't have a set release day. They reconfirmed a 2022 launch is happening as early as just a few days ago during their latest investor call. So this should be happening.
This year?
And they also confirmed that they will be running 1 or 2 stages of testing prior to release. I suspect this will come in the form of maybe one private invite-only test and then a second more open, but likely locked behind pre-orders or something, test to take place just before launch. All of which is to say, we will be getting our hands on this game almost certainly very, very soon. It has been quite a long journey for Throne and Liberty from a top-down started out as, and while I have plenty of reservations with such a big shift in this game taking place to its incredibly long development and how that might play into monetization, I am regardless very interested in seeing how all of this plays out. Visually,
I am also very interested. I think visuals,
they have some amazing.
I was just bitching about the realism stuff in other games, but I just feel like this is a healthy blend. Like, this looks realistic. The monsters don't necessarily do. The characters kind of do. I don't know how to explain it. I think it looks dope. I think they did this perfectly.
Weather and how that affects the terrain, combat, enemies that you fight, the big open world battles, the focus on cooperative and
the dynamic battles is crazy. Everybody being a druid is also sick.
Traversal system, lots of really cool stuff, and all around, I am very, very excited. Like, I cannot wait to play it. And either way, it does look like we'll be getting our hands on it and playing this game sometime very soon.
Soon, I mean,
next few months.
2022. When was this video?
It's going to be quite the event, like with any new MMO launch, and especially one that has some interesting elements to it, as Throne and Liberty does. It's going to be a fun time to jump in with everyone else, check it out, enjoy the good stuff, and rail on the bad stuff, right?
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you 100%. This was August 1st. This was just 29 days ago. NCSoft released its Q2 2022 results recently. Its report, PC sales compared, blah, 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 would be pushed to 2023. TL, which is currently under development, is currently being tested by 3,000 internal employees. Wow. I'm going to have to look up more stuff for Thrones and Liberty, because that just really piqued my interest more than it probably should have. That was pretty fire. I don't know, man. There's a huge part of me that really wants to, my head itches, to dive into an MMO, like, that really just wants to do it. Part of me really wants to get back on Final Fantasy. And because I never made hardly any progress in Final Fantasy 14. I think I'm level 20. Throne and Liberty, sign me up. I want to play it very badly.